Alright, so you want to build some cool ships in Starfield, but you're getting a little lost in the shipbuilder. Don't worry, that's completely normal. Shipbuilding is one of the best parts of the game, but it's not exactly beginner friendly. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down everything you need to know about shipbuilding. How the builder works, where to get parts, merging techniques, advanced building tips, and how to design ships that just don't look like flying bricks. This is going to be an all-inclusive guide, so if you're new to the game, you'll learn everything you need to know about shipbuilding in this one video. And for you Starfield veterans, I have timestamps throughout the video, so you can skip the topics you already know about. And with that said, let's get started. I'm going to start off with the basics first. In Starfield, there are 4 different classes of ships. You have Class A, Class B, Class C, and Class M. Now when it comes to vanilla shipbuilding, we only have access to classes A through C. The Class M ships are basically like the capital ships of the game, and you can't fly them, nor can you build them, unless you have mods. Now ship class is determined by what class of reactor you use. Class A reactors are the cheapest and the lightest ones that you can purchase, but they offer the least amount of power, hull density, and they generally have the slowest repair rates. Essentially, they're meant for smaller, lighter ships, like fighters. Class B reactors are the middle ground reactors, where you have a nice power to mass ratio along with a moderate repair rate and hull rating. Then you have Class C reactors, which offer the most power, but with that comes a higher price tag, more mass, and size, because the Class C reactors are 2 levels in height, so they're generally meant for medium to larger ships, or for when you just want to build an overpowered ship. The other components that make up the ship systems also have to follow the class rating of the reactor as well. But as you gain access to the higher classes, you'll be able to use parts from the lower classes. So if you're building a Class A ship, you'll be restricted to Class A grav drives, engines, shields, and weapons. But once you unlock Class B shipbuilding, you can install both Class A and Class B parts. And then when you unlock the Class C parts, you can utilize any parts from the lower classes. Now, shipbuilding is the most expensive thing that you can do in Starfield, so you're going to need to have credits on hand in order to start building ships. You can always use the Frontier as a foundation and continue upgrading it, in which case 50,000 to 100,000 credits is a good starting point. But I recommend having at least 250 to 300,000 credits to really build something that you're going to enjoy flying around. You're also going to want to invest some skill points in the piloting and starship design skills, which are both in the tech skill tree. Right off the bat, you'll be able to build and fly Class A ships. But in order to use Class B parts, you need to have Piloting 3 unlocked, and for Class C parts, you need to unlock Piloting 4. The best parts in the game are locked behind the Starship Design skill, so the more rank you have in Starship Design, the better you can optimize your ships. And a quick tip for the Piloting skill: when you're creating your character, choose a background that already has Piloting as one of the default skills, like the Bounty Hunter background. Then start the UC Vanguard quest as soon as you can. Once you're taken to the combat simulator at the start of the quest, any ship that you destroy during the simulation counts towards the piloting skill requirements. You can continue to reset and replay the simulator until you've destroyed enough ships to rank up the piloting skill. It takes around 15 to 30 minutes depending on how proficient you are at ship combat, but this is definitely the quickest way to level up the piloting skill early on in the game. Now, Starfield Shipbuilder doesn't have a save system or a blueprint system, so once you've started building a ship, you're not going to be able to exit the shipbuilder unless you cancel all the progress you have on your ship, or you have all the basic requirements meant for a complete ship build. So, at the bare minimum, every ship needs a landing bay that connects to a cockpit and a docker through the use of a hab or multiple habs. You don't need to have a direct path, but you need to ensure that your hab placement has an interior connection from the landing bay and the docker to the cockpit. You also need to install landing gear, a fuel tank, an engine, a reactor, and a grav drive. Weapons and shields are the only ship system components that aren't required to exit the ship builder. But if you fly around without them, you're going to lose every single ship combat engagement that you encounter, so it's always recommended to install both on your ships. Your landing bay and your landing gear determine what is the floor of your ship, and they must be aligned on the same y-axis level. Otherwise, you're going to get an error for this. And unless you have mods that affect these, you can only install one of each of the reactor, the grav drive, and the shield for ship system components, along with one landing bay, one cockpit, and one docker. The minimum number of engines, fuel tanks, and landing gear all depend on how heavy your ship is. The heavier your ship, the more of each you're going to need. In Starfield, power system management is based on allocation. Your reactor comes with a certain number of power that can be allocated to each of the 6 systems on your ship, and each system can utilize a maximum of 12 units of power each. What components you choose to install will determine how much power is required for those systems to operate at full capacity. The less power you allocate to a certain system, the less effective that component becomes. In the case of the engines, the less power you allocate to them, the slower the boost speed is and the recharge rate for the boost is. Effective top speed is also slower. For the grav drive, the time it takes to jump is affected, so the less power you have, the longer it takes to initiate a grav jump. Now in most cases, if you need to draw power from any one system, I always recommend pulling from the grav drive because it'll still operate with 1 unit of power. It's just going to take a few seconds longer to initiate a grav jump, which really isn't a big deal. For the shields, overall shield capacity is affected, and for the weapons, recharge rate is affected. So, outside of missiles, ship weapons in this game don't have any sort of magazine capacity. It's all based on a recharge system, and the recharge rate is determined by how much power is allocated to each weapon system. When you're installing a component, pay attention to the max power stat. That number is going to tell you how many points that component requires. Remember, each ship system can have multiple weapons and engines, so the maximum number that you can have of each is determined by that max power number. These numbers are going to range between 2 and 6 depending on the module. So let's say you want to use these Class C Obliterator Alpha Beams, which use 4 power each. Then that means that you can install up to 3 of these particle beams on your ship for one of the weapon systems. If you want to install these Sal 6830 engines, then since they only require 2 units of power each, you can install up to 6 on a single ship, or you can mix and match the engines with other engines as long as you're within the 12 power limit. Now outside of 1 or 2 quest missions, power management mainly pertains to combat situations. So like I said earlier, if you need to add more power to your weapons or your shields or your engines, it's best to draw power from your grav drive since that's not needed for combat. One thing to note, if you max out every single ship system, there isn't a single reactor that can fully power all the systems in the vanilla game. The 2 most powerful reactors in the game are Class C reactors that only generate 40 power, but there are a few ways to increase power output from your reactors. If you max out the Anutronic Fusion skill in the Science skill tree, then you're going to have 5 extra points that you can use for any ship that you're piloting. Having either Vasco or Andromeda Kepler as part of your crew will also add an additional point, because they both have the Anutronic Fusion skill as well. Unfortunately, their skills don't stack, so even if you have both crewed on your ship, you're only going to get 1 additional point from the both of them. Recruiting Samco will automatically add an additional point specifically to your engine systems due to his piloting rank 4 skill, and recruiting Omari Hassan will automatically add an additional point to your shield systems because of his shield systems rank 3 skill. So, in total, you can actually have up to 48 power depending on your reactor and your crew selection. There's also non-companion crew specialists that you can hire. They're not going to add power, but they do provide buffs to your ship's performance and combat abilities. When it comes to ship stats, you're going to see everything listed at the bottom of the ship builder. Now, every part that you add to your ship is going to add to the hull rating and ship mass. And mass affects your jump range, your mobility, and your top speed. So, as you add parts, you're going to notice that your hull and mass start to rise as your jump range decreases. Your ship's top speed and boost are also affected by this, but it's only noticeable when you're flying in-game. Adding more engines can help to mitigate a loss in top speed, but because engines are pretty heavy themselves, adding too many will also negatively impact your jump range. So, finding the right balance between component selection and performance is key, and this could be tailored to your preferred playstyle or whatever role ship you're trying to build. Now, I'm not going to break down how the math works for each component, but there are a few things that you should know. The top speed numbers in the ship builder indicate what the non-boosted top speed is of that particular engine module. However many engines you add to your ship is going to determine your ship's non-boosted top speed. And again, mass affects this, as does your skill rank in the engine system skill. The Class C engines all have a top speed of 130, Class B engines all have a top speed of 140, and outside of one set of Class A engines that has a top speed of 180, they all have a top speed of 150. When you're flying around in your ship, the bottom left corner of your HUD is going to show your current speed in the game. Now you can combine different engines and even classes of engines, but your overall top speed is going to be capped by the larger engine class's top speed. So if you install Class A and Class C engines, your effective top speed is capped at 130 for all the engines. Now your ship's mobility rating is determined by maneuvering thrust. The more maneuvering thrust a ship has, the tighter the turning radius and turning speed. And just like top speed, your rank in the engine system skill as well as the ship mass determines your mobility. This stat is going to mirror the top speed numbers in that Class C engines have more maneuvering thrust than Class B engines, which have more maneuvering thrust than Class A engines. Your ship is going to have a sweet spot when it comes to speed and maneuverability, and that's indicated by this lighter section where your thrust output is. Maintaining this speed will give you the best maneuverability when you're flying. The faster you go, the wider your turns will be. And real quick, if I'm being honest, top speed is not that important in this game. You should focus more on having better mobility. You would think that having a faster boost speed and top speed would be beneficial for ship combat, but in reality, mobility, weapon damage output, and shield capacity are far more important for combat. For the grav jump range, 30 light years is all you need to be able to cross the full length of the star map. In most cases, Class C grav drives will be able to cover this depending on the mass of your ship, while Class A and Class B grav drives are going to require a minimum of 2 or more jumps to traverse the whole map. When you're jumping to another system through the star map, you'll be able to see which systems are within range of your grav drive. And one last thing here, in the ship builder, you're only going to see one cargo rating, but this game also has shielded cargo, which is required if you want to smuggle contraband. It's easy to lose track of how much shielded cargo you've installed, but you can find the total amount in the ship selection menu. Ship combat in Starfield blends a bit of arcade space combat with some space sim features. Aim assist is going to help you fire directly at ships after you've locked onto them, and to destroy a ship, you have to deplete its shields to damage its hull. There are a total of 5 different weapon types in Starfield, and with the exception of missiles and EM weapons, Class B and Class C weapons also have turrets which will automatically lock on and fire at enemy ships. For weapon types, ballistics have one of the largest selections in the game, and they're most effective against ship hulls, while lasers are best used to disable shields. You're going to see some crossover damage between both of these weapon types, but ballistics are generally meant for hulls while lasers are meant for shields. Then you have particle beams, which many would consider the best weapon type in the game because they're basically ballistics and lasers combined, and they do the same amount of hull and shield damage. The fourth weapon type is missiles, which do the most damage overall, but they're the only weapons that have a magazine capacity. The magazine recharges, so you have an unlimited amount of missiles, but the magazine capacity is there to balance the weapon out. And then the final weapon type is electromagnetic weapons, which do direct damage to ship systems without damaging the ship itself. Ballistics, lasers, and particle beams also have 2 types of firing modes. Auto weapons have faster fire rates, while sustained fire weapons can shoot indefinitely. Reactor power allocation is either going to affect the recharge rate for the auto weapons or the fire rate for the sustained fire weapons. Now if you want to be a space pirate, or you just want to steal some ships to build with, EM weapons will allow you to commandeer ships without damaging them. Your ship has a targeting mode that allows you to target specific ship systems, and you can use EM weapons to disable the engines directly, so you can dock and board with a ship to wipe out the crew and then take control of it. You just need to be within 500 meters in order to dock with either a ship or a star yard. You can also use other weapons to disable ships in combat, but first you need to disable the shields before you can target a specific ship system. It's best to use lasers and ballistics for this since particle beams and missiles will damage the ship itself as you try and disable its shields. Now, outside of the power management system, ships also have thrust vectoring and inertia, so that has to be taken into account when you're flying around. And that's where Starfield's combat slightly leans into space sim territory. When you're in combat, you can utilize thrust vectoring to drift your ship, which allows you to attack enemy ships while avoiding enemy gunfire. It might take a little getting used to when you're first starting out, but once you get the hang of it, you're going to be using thrust vectoring in all ship combat engagements. In Starfield, there are 5 main ship manufacturers, and each have a dedicated star yard within the settled systems. You have Deimos, which leads into a futuristic military aesthetic and is the primary manufacturer for the United Colonies. The halves and the parts have sharper lines and angles, which really leans into that military aesthetic, while the interiors have a very clean, futuristic look that you can use for a variety of ship roles. Nova Galactic is the second UC-affiliated manufacturer, and it's the oldest shipyard in Starfield lore. When you hear people describe Starfield as having a NASA punk aesthetic, the Nova Hab interiors are a prime example of what they're talking about. When you're inside the Habs, the atmosphere really evokes that NASA punk space exploration vibe. Hope Tech is the third manufacturer, and it's allied with the Freestar Collective. You can consider Hope Tech as like the space trucker brand of the settled systems, because the Habs and the parts look more utilitarian and industrial. The same goes for the Hope Tech Hab interiors. They're very dark and utilitarian, and they're great for freighter and bounty hunter builds. Stroud Eklund is the fourth manufacturer, and it's also Freestar affiliated. Stroud is considered the luxury brand of the settled systems, and the parts have very clean shapes and lines. But the Hab interiors are derivatives of the Deimos Habs. With the exception of some Habs like the computer cores, most are exactly the same as Deimos, but with a different interior color scheme. And last but not least is Tayo Astroneering, which is another Freestar affiliated manufacturer. Tayo utilizes a minimalist aesthetic inside and out, and most of the parts are smoother with rounded edges. The Hab interiors are exactly the same as Hope Tech Habs, but with a lighter, more inviting color scheme. Now, you can build ships in these locations, but they're only going to contain the parts that are associated with that particular manufacturer. At the same time, these are the only locations where you can get specialized manufacturer parts, like bridges, certain landing gear, and specialty Habs, like the larger 2x2 to 3x3 Habs. For all the other locations, you can't purchase bridges. You can only purchase cockpits, along with a single width Habs, so none of the larger 2x2 to 3x3 Habs. That being said, every spaceport in the game has a ship technician that you can speak to purchase, repair, and edit your ships. Part availability at these locations generally depends on manufacturer to faction affiliation. So, ship techs that are located in UC territory will generally feature Deimos and Nova Galactic parts, while ship techs in Freestar territory generally have Hope Tech, Stroud, or Tayo parts. You'll see some parts sprinkled in from other manufacturers, and pricing is consistent, but generally speaking, faction location plays a role in what parts are available at whatever ship tech or spaceport that you're at. This is also going to apply to equipment like scan jammers. Because they're used for smuggling contraband, they can only be purchased at the Key or the Red Mile. So, where is the best place to build ships then? Well, that would actually be your outpost landing pad. You can build a landing pad with Shipbuilder at any outpost that you've created, and these landing pads have a terminal where you can access all your ships and edit them. Why I recommend building at an outpost is because you're going to have access to pretty much every non-restricted part in the game, regardless of manufacturer and including some of the quest log parts as well. You're not going to have access to all the components in the game, but most are available through the outpost landing pad anyways. So say you want to build a ship and use something like the Hope Tech Overseer Bridge, which can only be purchased at Hopetown. Then what you can do is take whatever base structure of a ship you have to Hopetown, purchase the Overseer Bridge there, then go back to your outpost landing pad to build out the rest of your ship. To build an outpost landing pad, you just need to place an outpost beacon anywhere you'd like that's unrestricted, then go into the miscellaneous tab and add a landing pad with Ship Builder. The resources that you're going to need to do this are 18 adaptive frames, 2 zero wire, 30 iron, and 2 beryllium. You can just purchase these from various vendors, so you don't need to waste time mining the resources and manufacturing the zero wire and adaptive frames. However, if you enjoy the outpost and mining gameplay loop, all the resources needed are very abundant in the game. Something that you're going to realize very early on is that building errors are inevitable. Not only do you need to meet the basic requirements that we already went over, but installing too many parts will also lead to errors. Anytime your ship has issues to fix, you're going to see every error listed in the flight check menu at the bottom right corner of the UI. When you click it, you'll see a drop-down list of every single error that your ship has. The Weapons tab is where you'll set your weapon configuration. So if you see an error that states ship has weapons that must be assigned to a group, this is where you assign them. Now since the errors are pretty self-explanatory, I'm not going to go over each one, but just like other shipbuilding mechanics, there are some things that you need to know. In the vanilla game, your ship is limited to 40 meters in length and width from the center point of the ship. That means you have a max size limit of 80 meters. Essentially, if you lay out 1x1 Habs in a row, you can lay out 10 before you hit the size limit for the length and the width. Same goes for the height, but you also need to factor in the landing bay and landing gear as one Hab height. Also, the maximum number of parts that you can install is roughly around 130 parts. When you're first starting out, Most of the errors that you're going to have will probably be tied to cockpit connections with landing bays and dockers, misaligned landing bays and landing gear, using too much power for weapons and engines, or just your ship being too heavy to do things like grav jumping. Again, the errors are pretty straightforward, but we'll go over a common one together. Ship is using too much power for engines or weapons. Reduce engine or weapon count. This error is going to lead back to power management. Basically, you've installed too many weapons or engines for one of the weapon systems or the engine systems. Remember, the total max power for all the components that you install must be within the 12-point limit per ship system. Once you take care of the issue, the error is going to disappear, and once you remove all the errors from the flight check menu, then your ship is good to go and you can exit the shipbuilder. Now, the last thing that I want to cover for the basics is vanilla merging. During the first year of the game's release, there were 4 common glitch methods to merge parts. But after the August 2024 update, Bethesda patched these out, which got the shipbuilding community pretty upset. A couple months later, Bethesda decided to retcon that decision, turning one of those glitches into a feature of the game. This is called the flip merge. Flip merging allows you to merge parts onto snapping points that are already occupied by other parts. Normally, when you attach parts to each other, the snapping point that attaches both is no longer available for other parts to snap to. What flip merging does is allow us to attach more than one part to a snapping point by simply attaching the part, flipping it once, then flipping it back. Once the part is deselected, it will snap into place, effectively merging it with that part that was already there. This opens the door for so many things. For example, you can combine various parts together to create new wing designs, or you can combine parts together to create new engine housings. Now, I believe the default setting for flip merging is off, so to enable it, go to Settings, then Controls, and scroll down and enable Shipbuilder Allow Flip Merge, and then you're good to go. Now, earlier, I mentioned that there used to be 4 glitch techniques to merge parts together. These were technically patched, but there are still ways to utilize those glitches. If you want to use them for your builds, I recommend checking out J. Ramos Works Gaming here on YouTube. Jeremy was a prominent shipbuilder and the go-to guy to learn all the glitch methods for shipbuilding. He hasn't been as active, but he did recently update his Ramtech mods and he put out a video about it, so I hope to see more Starfield content from him. Now, he has a video called The Ultimate Shipbuilding Glitch Guide, Take 4 Post-Patch Edition, where he tests out all 4 of the original glitch methods. And this is still the best resource to learn what glitch methods still work and how to do them. Unfortunately, I couldn't showcase these myself because my game is heavily modded and I have a few ship mods that tweak the snapping tolerances to make merging really easy. So if you want to learn the glitches, check out his video and his channel. I've also linked it in the video description. Alright, so with the basics out of the way, I want to start going over some building tips. Things like how to build cool ships and quality of life recommendations. When you're first starting out, it's going to be hard to not build flying bricks. For a lot of people, it really boils down to trying to fit all the halves you want into a design that actually looks good. Before you start any ship build, you should determine what role you want your ship to be. This will set you in the right direction for the parts and components that you need to install. For example, if you want to build a cargo freighter, you most likely need to build a Class B or Class C ship, and your engine choices should follow that class selection if you want good mobility. If you want to build a nimble fighter, Class A is your best bet, and you'll know to stick with the less bulky parts. Another tip I always tell anyone who's new to shipbuilding is to get familiar with all the parts. At least get familiar with the cockpits and bridges, the engines, and the structural parts. Once you have a better understanding of what's available, it becomes so much easier to envision how you want to build out a ship. After your first 2 to 5 ships, you're already going to get a pretty good idea of what parts are available. You may not remember which manufacturer has what part, but at the very least, you'll remember the part itself, and you'll have an idea of where and how you want to use it. I think it's best to start out by building ships that already exist, like ships from movies or games that you're very familiar with. If you know the ship inside and out, take the Millennium Falcon for example, the ship is so locked in your memory that you could just come across a part and you'll immediately know that it's going to work for the build. It won't be long before you start intentionally deviating from a design just to add your own flavor to a ship. Maybe you didn't like that the Millennium Falcon is asymmetric and you've always wanted a symmetrical version of it, then go ahead and just try and make those modifications. This is a great way to not only get used to the parts in the game, but also pretty soon you're going to get to the point where you can just look at a ship and mentally build something similar in your head. Some great resources you could look into for design inspiration are the Starfield ships subreddit, where builders are posting ships every day, and Pinterest, where you can find a bunch of cool ship designs too. And of course you can follow my build guides or any of the other shipbuilders on YouTube as well. The SAL 6830 engines are the best engines in the game for heavy cargo hauling because they have the third highest maneuvering thrust out of all the engines, but they're also the only engines that require 2 power each, which allows you to install up to 6 on your ship, and that's going to give you the most maneuvering thrust out of any engine combination in the game. These are going to be locked behind a mission in the main quest. The fastest engines in the game are the White Dwarf 3015s, which have a 180 top speed, and the SAE 5660s have the highest maneuvering thrust per unit of power for Class B engines. For ship weapons, one thing that you need to know is that a higher class doesn't mean a better weapon. Most of the highest DPS weapons are actually Class B weapons. Assuming you've installed the maximum amount for each, the Vanguard Hellfire autocannons have the highest DPS against hulls for ballistics. For direct fire particle beams, PBO 175 auto Helion beams have the highest DPS overall, but the Class A Vanguard Obliterator auto projectors are also very powerful, since you can install 6 on your ship. The Obliterator 250 MEV alpha turrets have the highest DPS for particle beam turrets, but since they're sustained fire, they need to operate on max power to maintain their standard fire rate. The PBO 300 auto alpha turrets can run on 1 power and still maintain the same fire rate, albeit with a slower recharge rate, but that makes managing power with them much easier. For lasers, the Dragon 251P UV pulse lasers are strongest for direct fire, while both the Reza 300 PHZ SX and the 10 PHZ pulse laser turrets are tied for the highest DPS laser turrets. Missiles and EM weapons are more of a personal preference situation, but generally speaking, the ATL 280Cs do the most damage for missiles, while players prefer the Nullifier 1750 suppressor for EM weapons. Also, on the subject of weapons, turrets are great for beginners because the moment that you add any power to them, they're going to automatically start firing onto enemy ships. So your turrets can literally just run on 1 power if you need to. And they also help to prevent enemies from locking onto you because they're constantly firing at them. That being said, don't waste a turret slot with ballistics because they're going to keep firing until they need a recharge. And if the enemy shields are still up, you're barely causing any damage to the ship. Use either lasers or particle beam turrets so you can continue to deplete enemy shields while you're evading or attacking other ships. And one last thing, for small and medium ships, the Class B Mag Inertial 104DS reactor provides the second highest power output out of all the reactors in the game, so that makes it easily the best reactor for anything that doesn't require a Class C reactor. Now I'm not going to go through the rest of the components, but a great source to look up more information like this is Inara. It's a complete database for all things Starfield related, and I've linked it in the video description as well. Now remember, unless you're constantly trying to upgrade your gear with X-Tech, shipbuilding is the most expensive thing that you can do in this game. One of the most efficient ways to earn credits is by selling loot, and the best place to do this is at Neon Core. Fast travel to Neon Core, and you'll start at the Mining League, then continue leftwards to do an entire loop of the core. The vendors that you're going to sell to are the Mining League, New Will's Goods, Tranquility, Arboron, Neon Tactical, Trade Authority, Seaguards Outfitters, Core Kinetics, and if you want, the TA kiosk at Neon Spaceport. Like I said earlier, weapons are still the best things to sell here because every vendor mentioned will buy weapons off of you, but not necessarily anything else. 3 of these vendors are only going to buy weapons or ammo. So store whatever weapons you want to keep on your player inventory and store whatever you want to sell in your ship's inventory. Then, at each vendor, just spam the sell button from your ship's inventory. If you're quick at this, you can earn 320,000 credits in about 6 to 8 minutes. Centurion Arsenal in the residential district of New Atlantis is another place to dump massive weapon loot. You can sit on the chair by the counter, sell your weapons, then without ever having to do the sit-stand animations again, you can just rest for 24 hours to reset Anya's credits and then repeat the whole process. Sometimes Anya will walk away, in which case you'll have to get up, but most of the time she's within talking distance from this chair. Now the power play here is to combine this with the Neon Vendor loop by doing the 24-hour inventory reset at Centurion Arsenal, then fast travel back to Neon Core, and just keep going back and forth between both places until you've sold all your weapon loot. One cycle of this will net you 385,000 credits in about 10 minutes of your time. There are also vendors in random civilian outposts, and if you get lucky, you're going to come across a couple vendors that have chairs right in front of them. Just like Centurion Arsenal, you can sit on these chairs and keep selling, then resting to reset the vendor credits. If you find ones located on Vessel 3B or Venus, then you only need to wait 1 hour instead of 24 hours due to the time dilation that these locations have. These vendors will have 25,000 credits on max settings, so you can literally rack up 25,000 credits like every 20 seconds. This will be the best option in general, but it is hard to find these locations. It takes patience, but once you find them, plop an outpost beacon as close as you can to it, and then you can just come back to this place whenever you need to. Alright, now I'm going to go over some quality of life tips, and this is also going to include modded builds as well. If you build a lot of ships, you've probably experienced what it feels like to lose one when your game crashes. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it is a real gut punch. Just make sure you have all the required components ready on the side, so you can slap them on real quick to exit and save. I built well over 100 ships by now, and I've only lost 3 or 4 to crashing, so it really doesn't happen often, but you can do this as a precaution if you're worried about losing your ships. If you're playing with mods and you're consistently crashing in the shipbuilder or when you're exiting, then it's safe to say that you have some mod conflicts going on or some issues with your load order. If you notice a specific mod giving you issues, the general rule of thumb is to place it lower in relation to the rest of your ship mods. I also recommend to not decorate a ship until you're completely done with the build. It's hard to stop tinkering with your ship, but if it's heavily decorated, your game could crash when you exit the shipbuilder, and you will almost certainly lose some or all of your decorations in the process. This is especially the case for modded builds and decorations. And speaking of modded decorations, I have an interior decoration guide for ships that details the mods I use as well as some decorating tips and tricks, like manipulating habs to build cool armory setups. I've also linked that video in the description. Something that I don't think the game tells you on PC is that you can select all connected parts by double-clicking on one of the parts. Consoles have a dedicated select all button to do this, but on PC you just need to double-click. And with that, you can move a whole section of parts around without having to individually select them. This is also a great way to ensure that all your parts are connected. If you double-click and all but one part is highlighted, that means that that part isn't snapped into place. So if you're working on some heavy merges for a ship build, you should regularly double-click on your ship to make sure that your parts are actually attaching. If you build modded ships, you're probably familiar with Gillibrand hab snaps and mini bracers. If not, they're these downsized parts that allow for fractional snapping, and they're essential for dialing in the look that you want. If you're like me and you use them excessively for each build, then save yourself the trouble of always searching for them. Just have them ready on the side so you can duplicate them in instead of having to search the structural tab for them each time you need them. It's like a multi-tool for shipbuilding, and these are the first things that I add into the shipbuilder before I start anything. Hab snaps are very essential for landing the shape that you want, but at the same time they're pretty annoying to work with. They have a pretty high snapping tolerance, so anytime you use them to raise or lower a part, more often than not, it skips over the snapping point that you're trying to use. If you're really having trouble with it, you can use duplication with an Aventech wing to do fractional leveling. These wings stack at a fraction of the normal hab height, so if you highlight another part with it, the duplication will follow the Aventech wing spacing. Sometimes the parts can jump a little too high, but you just need to select it and lower it a level, and it'll snap into place just above the previous wing. You can also do this for built-out sections as well by highlighting all the parts in that section, then select the Aventech wing and duplicate upwards. If a hab snap is involved, shift it diagonally to the right or the left. This sets the parts at a half step of whatever hab snap size you're using. Since you're duplicating parts though, you need to make sure that the ship tech that you're at has the parts that you need to duplicate. Otherwise this isn't going to work because you can't duplicate a part that's not available. Next up, for modded builds, I want to go over something I call closed loop merging. I don't know if there's a term for it, so that's just what I'm going to call it. Now obviously, when you're merging parts, if there's an open snapping point, the parts will automatically snap and merge into place. But when you're doing a full-on merge where all the snapping points are occupied, then you have to do the select all plus accept, or select all plus shift methods. Accept is spacebar on PC, A on Xbox, and I believe it's X on PS5. Basically, you get the part that you need to merge as close as you can to where it needs to go. Or you can literally merge it and just leave it floating in place. Just make sure that it doesn't snap to anything. You want it to freely float in place. Then, you highlight the section of attached parts and either press accept or drag the highlighted parts towards the merging part. It's simple enough, but it's also crucial that you do this anytime you merge a part that doesn't automatically snap, because this is the only way to guarantee that parts are snapped into place. In many of my builds, you'll see me merge one by one components like reactors, grav drives, and cargo holds into each other so I can increase hab space on my ships. The simplest way to do this is to stack the parts back to back and just shift them in whatever direction that you want to merge them in. The part that's behind the one that needs to be merged acts as a loop closer each time you merge a part in, and you can do this in any direction on a horizontal plane. Now, this idea of an open and closed loop is in reference to the exposed snapping point that needs to be covered. For example, when I merge this engine into the wing setup, the engine isn't snapped into place, so I use an inconspicuous part like a hab snap to close this open loop. And to ensure that the engine is snapped into place, we do the select all plus accept method to make sure everything is connected. Greeble is a great method to spruce up the designs of your ships. If you don't know what Greeble is, it's kind of like that technical filler that you can add to break up empty surface space. It's a very common design tactic that you see with Star Wars ships like the Millennium Falcon to give it that realistic industrial look. And it helps to give your ship some atmosphere, especially if you're going for a rugged freighter. But this also works really well on smoother builds like exploration ships too, if you can Greeble tastefully. Some of the paid mods are starting to include Greebled parts, but another way to implement Greebling is by using decorative components. The Better Ship Part Flips mod by Rux616 has decorative versions of all the components in the game. They're purely for aesthetics and they don't have any functionality whatsoever, but adding them to your ships is a great way to break up smooth surface space or create new component designs. Don't just stick with decorative shields or decorative reactors and grav drives. The decorative weapons and fuel tanks are also great for Greebling. Pair them with Gillibrand hab snaps and you can completely cover the surface of a ship. And last but not least, I'm just going to briefly talk about X-Tech. It's a new resource that was added in the Free Lanes update, and its purpose in-game is to upgrade your weapons, your gear, and even your ships. To install ship upgrade modules using X-Tech, you first need to install a ship optimization terminal through the interior decorator. Once that's set, you can access it and upgrade various ship systems using X-Tech. I don't have the stats for the buffs, but I'm sure someone on Reddit or YouTube will eventually figure that out. And that is all I have for now. Shipbuilding can be frustrating if you're new, so I hope this guide will help you to understand the ins and outs of how the mechanics work. And PS5 players, welcome to the Settled Systems. It's been a long time coming, and I hope you're enjoying the game so far. It seems like a lot of the mods are quickly making their way over, so hopefully you guys will get all the crucial shipbuilding mods as well. And if you're new to the channel, I upload build guides regularly for Starfield and No Man's Sky, so if you ever need some design inspiration or you just want to build some cool ships, I have plenty that you can try out. I try to reply to everyone, so feel free to reach out to me in the comments if you have any questions or build requests, or if you just want to chat all things Starfield and No Man's Sky shipbuilding. This is Lindan, signing off. See you in the Starfield.